Wallace Stevens died in Hartford, Connecticut in 1955. For the last 39 years of his life, the poet worked as a lawyer in the surety bond claim department of the Hartford Insurance Group. In 1934, he was promoted to vice president. Stevens lived here with his wife Elsie and their daughter Holly. From this house, he walked 2 miles to work. He often composed poetry while walking and believed that his own movement helped form the rhythm of the poem. For Stevens, this northern landscape formed one pole of his experience and, more importantly, of his imagination. The opposite world was Florida, especially Key West. Each winter he absorbed its tropical atmosphere on fishing trips he took with his male friends. Stevens is America's great poet of the endless cycles of desire and despair. He writes of the mind's hunger for imaginative possibilities and of reality's stubborn resistance. Today, there are only a few surviving neighbors and business associates who knew him. Those who knew him saw in his disciplined public life only hints of his spiritual and emotional struggles. Stevens' inner life is revealed in his poetry.
Well, if you leave out his personal life, he was a happy man.
I used to see Wallace Stevens walking down the street going to work. He was a neighbor, and he used to walk to work every morning. And as I saw him pass my house every morning, I used to be so thrilled. And then in the afternoon at 4 o'clock, he'd be coming back. And at 4 o'clock, I'd be outdoors here with the children in the neighborhood playing games. And when I saw Wallace Stevens walk by this house, I would make the children stop and look at him. And I would say to them, you look at this man, he's a great poet, and don't you ever forget him.
I would say he was respected by our department, perhaps a little bit feared, more in an awesome manner than anything else. But we got along well with him.
I try to draw a definite line between poetry and business. And I'm sure that most people here in Hartford know nothing about the poetry. And I'm equally sure that I don't want them to know. Because once they know, they don't seem to get over it. I mean that once they know, they never think of you as anything but a poet. And after all, one is inevitably much more complicated than that.
I find it hard to give you any specific information as to what he would say during the course of our conversations. But I do recall one time when I got to know him a little better. He called me in the office one day and he says to me, Brownie, he said, can you give me your idea of what imagination was? I said, no, I don't have any idea. He said, well, why don't you think about it a couple of days and come back and we'll talk about it. But he never brought the subject up again. Yeah. Very thankful, too.
O Florida, venereal soil. A few things for themselves, convolvulus and coral, buzzards and live moss, tiestas from the Keys. A few things for themselves, Florida, venereal soil, disclosed to the lover. The dreadful sundry of this world, the Cuban Polodovsky, the Mexican women, the Negro undertaker killing the time between corpses, fishing for crayfish, virgin of boorish births, swiftly in the nights, in the porches of Key West, behind the bougainvilleas, after the guitar is asleep, lasciviously as the wind you come tormenting, insatiable. When you might sit, a scholar of darkness, sequestered over the sea, wearing a clear tiara of red and blue and red, sparkling, solitary, still in the high sea shadow. Donna, Donna, dark, stooping in indigo gown and cloudy constellations, conceal yourself or disclose fewest things to the lover, a hand that bears a thick-leaved fruit, a pungent bloom against your shade.
There's something intensely secretive about Stevens. One doesn't know. I don't, it's hard, the disclosures in Stevens are not of the most, not of the primary sort. He never says, I am feeling bad today. It's not that way at all.
Stevens is a poet of the most profound subjectivity. He refuses to give any personal details about himself. He refuses to give you a voluntary self-revelation of any kind. He deals with the appearances of things, the apparent appearances of things, as they play over him and as he plays over them. He deals with nuances. He is, as he says, a poet of the weather, which he understood always as meaning what it means for all of us, the presence or absence of sun and the movement of the wind, which are very clearly universal human tropes or metaphors for states of the spirit or conditions of the soul.